Have you ever seen a film stumble before even hitting the big screen? Well, Disney's latest live-action adaptation, Snow White, starring Rachel Zegler, has achieved what many would have thought impossible. It's setting records for all the wrong reasons. The backlash started early, with its trailers racking up an astonishing number of dislikes, and now, the latest box office projections suggest that audiences may be avoiding this remake like a poisoned apple. But just how bad are things looking for Disney's once revered princess, and can the House of Mouse pull off a miraculous turnaround? Let's dive into the numbers, the reactions, and the mounting concerns surrounding this film. The projections for Snow White's opening weekend aren't painting a fairytale ending for Disney. Reports indicate the movie is expected to earn somewhere between $63 million and $70 million over its opening 3-day stretch. That might seem decent on the surface, but in comparison to other Disney live-action remakes, it's a dismal start. Consider the massive openings of films like The Lion King 2019, which brought in $191 million, or Beauty and the Beast 2017, which raked in $174 million. Snow White's numbers are looking less like a royal success and more like a royal failure. For leading actress Rachel Zegler, this would mark her best domestic opening to date, surpassing her previous record set by The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which debuted at $44.6 million. However, that's hardly a reason to celebrate when compared to the box office heavyweights of Disney's past. The studio was banking on Snow White being a major hit, but audience interest appears lukewarm at best. So what's going wrong? A significant part of the issue stems from the controversy surrounding the film. From Zegler's public comments about the original Snow White and the changes made to the story to the backlash over the reimagined dwarves, fans have been vocal in their discontent. Social media has been ablaze with criticism, and many longtime Disney fans feel alienated by what they see as unnecessary and unwanted alterations to a beloved classic. In an era where nostalgia is often the key to box office success, straying too far from the original magic can be a costly mistake. There's also the matter of competition. 2025 is already shaping up to be a brutal year for blockbusters, and with films like Inside Out 2 and other anticipated releases on the horizon, Snow White is struggling to find its audience. Disney may have hoped that the massive success of Barbie would create an appetite for female-led fantasy films, but the comparisons haven't worked in their favor. Unlike Barbie, which was met with overwhelming positivity, Snow White is facing an uphill battle just to win over skeptics. Adding fuel to the fire, Disney's recent struggles at the box office don't inspire confidence. The studio has had a string of underperforming films, and Snow White was supposed to be one of the projects that helped turn things around. Instead, it's looking more like another misstep in a troubling pattern. Even the most dedicated Disney fans are questioning the studio's decisions, and the skepticism surrounding this remake suggests it won't have the staying power of past animated to live-action adaptations. But can Disney pull off a surprise victory? Historically, some of its films have started slow but picked up momentum thanks to strong word-of-mouth and strategic marketing pushes. Maleficent, for example, had its skeptics but ultimately found success. However, Snow White isn't showing the same potential. Early indications suggest that audiences simply aren't as interested as Disney hoped they would be, and without a dramatic shift in perception, this film may struggle to reach profitability. One of the more surprising aspects of this entire situation is the reaction from the legacy media. Normally, outlets rally behind Disney productions, offering positive spins even when a film is facing challenges. But this time, it seems that even they are acknowledging the writing on the wall. Some publications have already started managing expectations, suggesting that Snow White may not be the hit the studio was banking on. This shift in narrative is telling. It suggests that even Disney's usual defenders are preparing for disappointment. Looking ahead, What does this mean for Disney's future? The company is already dealing with setbacks on multiple fronts, from struggling franchises to internal shakeups. Snow White was meant to be a beacon of hope, a sign that Disney could still deliver magic to the masses. Instead, it's become a cautionary tale about the dangers of straying too far from what made audiences fall in love with these stories in the first place. At this point, the best-case scenario for Disney is that the film at least breaks even, but that's far from guaranteed. If the opening weekend numbers remain on the lower end of projections, and if word of mouth doesn't turn things around, Snow White could become one of Disney's biggest misfires in recent history. And if that happens, it could spell trouble for the studio's future live-action endeavors. As we inch closer to the film's release, all eyes will be on the box office. Will audiences turn out despite the controversy, or will Snow White be yet another chapter in Disney's recent struggles? Either way, one thing is clear: the magic of Disney's live-action remakes is wearing thin, and Snow White may just be the tipping point. The repercussions of Snow White's performance extend far beyond this single film. Disney has long relied on its live-action remakes as a major revenue stream, and if audiences continue to reject them, the studio may be forced to rethink its entire approach. Are audiences simply tired of rehashed classics, or is Disney's interpretation of these beloved stories the real problem? The answer might lie in how Disney has evolved or devolved over the past decade. Critics argue that the studio has lost its touch with storytelling, prioritizing messaging over the heartfelt narratives that made Disney films timeless. The backlash against Snow White is a symptom of a larger issue. Audiences are no longer willing to blindly accept changes to characters and stories they grew up with. The nostalgia factor, once Disney's strongest weapon, is now working against them as fans push back against what they see as unnecessary reinventions. Beyond the controversy, there's also the concern that Disney has lost its creative spark. Instead of focusing on new and original ideas, the company has doubled down on remakes, reboots, and sequels. This strategy may have worked in the short term, but with diminishing returns, it's clear that audiences are growing weary. If Snow White underperforms, it could be the wake-up call. Disney needs to pivot toward fresh storytelling rather than relying on past glories. However, Disney isn't without options. If the film flops, the studio could still find a way to salvage its reputation. A course correction might involve shifting focus back to animation, where Disney has historically excelled, or investing in original live-action stories rather than remakes. Whatever the case, one thing is certain: the performance of Snow White will be a defining moment for Disney's future. So, what happens next? Will Disney learn from this experience, or will they double down on a strategy that's clearly losing steam? The next few months will be telling, and the decisions made in the wake of Snow White's box office performance could shape the future of the entertainment giant. One thing is clear: change is inevitable, and whether it's for better or worse remains to be seen. There is something about the legacy of classic films that holds an undeniable weight in the world of cinema. Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs 1937 is one such film, a groundbreaking piece of animation history that set the stage for everything that came after. It was not only Walt Disney's first full-length animated feature but also the film that introduced the concept of the animated feature film to audiences worldwide. However, as time has passed, Hollywood has made it a habit to revisit, reimagine, and recreate old stories, hoping to bring them into the modern era. While this can sometimes be done with respect and appreciation for the original material, there are times when a remake missteps, failing to capture the essence of what made the original beloved in the first place. This, unfortunately, seems to be the case with the upcoming Snow White live-action remake, starring Rachel Zegler. One of the most controversial aspects of this upcoming film is Rachel Zegler's approach to discussing it. Rather than embracing the timeless charm of the 1937 film, Zegler initially spoke about it in a way that many saw as dismissive, even disrespectful. She referred to it as dated, implying that the original story needed a major overhaul to appeal to modern audiences. While there is an argument to be made that certain elements of old fairy tales could use refinement, her tone came across as belittling rather than appreciative. A more strategic and thoughtful way to address the film's adaptation would have been to acknowledge its legacy while gently expressing the ways in which this new version aims to evolve. For instance, she could have said, "The 1937 movie is a classic that paved the way for animation, but our goal is to bring Snow White to a new generation with some fresh elements that reflect today's storytelling." Instead, her remarks alienated a portion of Disney's core audience, people who cherish the original film and view it as an untouchable masterpiece. Adding fuel to the fire, Zegler also made remarks about the prince in the original film, going so far as to call him a stalker. This statement baffled many fans, as the prince in the 1937 film has a relatively small role and is far from an intrusive or overbearing presence. Instead, he is portrayed as the classic romantic figure, appearing briefly at the beginning and later delivering the iconic true love's kiss. To label him a stalker seems like an exaggerated and unnecessary critique, one that further distances this remake from the spirit of its predecessor. Beyond the controversy surrounding the actress's comments, there is also a major discussion about whether she was the right fit for the role of Snow White in the first place. Snow White, as originally conceived, is the epitome of innocence, grace, and gentleness. Her voice, mannerisms, and demeanor reflect an almost dreamlike purity, something that made her unique among Disney princesses. Her songs are not belted out with diva-like power, rather, they are delivered with a soft, almost whispery quality that enhances her fairy tale charm. Zegler, however, has been described as having a very different presence. She possesses strong vocal abilities, but her style leans towards power ballad performances rather than the delicate, ethereal quality associated with Snow White. This contrast raises concerns about whether she can truly embody the essence of the character. While an actor's job is to bring a role to life in a unique way, there are certain fundamental traits that must be preserved for a character to remain recognizable. If the new Snow White is brash, bold, and overly assertive in a way that contradicts her original characterization, it risks alienating fans who hold the classic portrayal close to their hearts. The trailers and promotional material haven't helped in easing these concerns. A major issue that audiences have pointed out is that the new version of Snow White doesn't seem to carry the same sense of wonder and vulnerability that made the original so compelling. Instead of a young girl lost in an unfamiliar world, this Snow White appears defiant, staring down threats with a determined expression rather than the fear and curiosity that defined the original character's journey. This shift in character presentation has led to another widespread criticism that the remake is yet another example of Hollywood's obsession with turning every female protagonist into a girl boss archetype. While there is absolutely nothing wrong with strong female leads, the problem arises when this approach feels forced or inauthentic. Snow White was already strong in her own way. She demonstrated resilience, kindness, and an ability to bring people together through compassion. Redefining her strength solely through defiance and power stances strips away the very essence of what made her compelling in the first place. Even beyond Snow White herself, the overall production has faced significant challenges. Reports indicate that the film has undergone substantial reshoots, budget increases, and creative overhauls. These factors hint at a troubled production, which rarely bodes well for the final product. Moreover, the film's visual choices, such as the controversial decision to replace the seven dwarfs with a diverse group of magical creatures, have also sparked debate. Many feel that these changes deviate too far from the source material, making it hard to recognize this as the Snow White story audiences have loved for generations. The financial stakes for this movie are also incredibly high. Estimates suggest that the production budget has ballooned to nearly $400 million, factoring in reshoots, CGI work, and promotional efforts. This means that for the film to break even, it would need to make close to $1 billion at the box office, an increasingly difficult feat in today's Hollywood climate, where audience skepticism about Disney's remakes is at an all-time high. If the movie underperforms, it could serve as another wake-up call for Disney, signaling that audiences are growing tired of remakes that fail to honor their original counterparts. The company has already seen diminishing returns on some of its recent live-action adaptations, and Snow White could very well continue that trend if it fails to resonate with audiences. While there is still a chance that the film could surprise everyone, the early indicators are not promising. The backlash against Rachel Zegler's comments, the concerns about the film's drastic changes, and the overall fatigue with Disney's remake strategy all create an uphill battle for Snow White to succeed. At the end of the day, audiences crave authenticity. They want to see beloved stories treated with care, respect, and an understanding of what made them special in the first place. If a remake strays too far from its roots, it risks losing the magic that made the original so timeless. Unfortunately, it seems like Snow White may be another example of a film that forgets why its source material mattered in the first place. Disney would do well to pay attention to the reception of this film and learn from the mistakes that may have been made in its execution. Perhaps, in the future, they will strike a better balance between modernization and reverence for the classics. Until then, audiences will watch closely to see whether Snow White soars or stumbles at the box office. Only time will tell whether this ambitious remake will find its place among Disney's successful reimaginings or become another cautionary tale in the industry's ongoing struggle to reinvent beloved classics.